Boom. So the universe is about 13.7 billion years old, and the human race is, and every other species on the planet has been evolving for some 4.7 billion years or so, and we are now at the apex of our culture and civilization and technological capabilities, and this is the latest iteration of the Tweety Extruder, which is connected to this 3D printer, which is representative of the apex of our civilization's current prowess in technology for the average everyday guy who can afford a few $100 to put together a machine that builds plastic parts that you can then put into other machines or use for home or decor or art or whatever you need. You can make things fly. And this extruder here is now at its most refined point. I actually had to give this little ABS bath because it was coming apart. There's a weakness in this design, which requires some strength. As long as the piece is strong, it's fine, but it has it could push layers apart, basically. And you can imagine how that might happen. With screws and nuts and traps and things pushing each other in various directions. Most everything holds the thing together, but there's a couple parts that push in a way that against the nozzle, and basically the nozzle against half of the back part. So that's where it can separate. So it did, and so I actually fixed it with acetone. Yeah, did I say ABS bath before? It was an acetone bath. Not so much a bath, but I just poured it over it in a jar, and it seemed to do the trick. The idler is printed in PLA, so it's nice and strong. The hinge is now a piece of filament, so that's pretty cool. The motor is tightened up pretty well. I still haven't been able to flash the firmware exactly the way it should be for this extruder. But what I did was I put a file in the utility folder on the SD card that sets the correct extrusion steps, and then saves it to the EEPROM, which actually isn't set up, which is one of the things I need to flash this for. Once I do that, it'll actually write it to the EEPROM. Right now, it just has to be reflashed every time I start up the machine, or rewritten. I have to run the thing to tell it which extruder I have. So it's working really well. This is as far as I've been able to get with my whole setup. This is pretty much the apex right here. Everything is, you can see it's got a little reinforcer on the nozzle, which yes, it does heat up and get soft. So it doesn't get soft. It's on the outside, and it's in a position where it's getting hot, but it doesn't get hot enough to melt because it's ABS, and it's holding the nozzle away from the bottom rod, so that if it happens to run into the print in a certain direction, it won't pull the nozzle downward and make it worse, or at least it'll minimize that. And I did have this is a part that's tricky that way. It's the Y corner piece, and you can see it's got big holes that need bridging, and there's some overhangs, and those overhangs are the problem. As it moves, the overhangs drift upwards, and I think one way to deal with it maybe is to turn down the bridging speed, because I think overhangs might be done at the bridging speed. So that's pretty good. It left a little blob on there. I'm going to have to get that off. Right. It's been a while since I've used this, so I haven't cleaned it, but there you go. Come on, get up there. Oh, there we go. Interactive printing. So there we go. That's nice and clean now. So, yeah, so this basically, this Y end, once it gets to a certain point, it's going to start crashing the head a little bit, and it's one or two spots just where it starts to bridge. So I have to watch that, but I turned up the Y motor a little bit, so it's a little warmer than it was, but it's also prevents it really pulls the bed across, so it makes sure that the head crash doesn't turn into something totally fatal. I also upped the motor, and right now it seems great. It's pretty warm, but it's not hot at all. The fan speed, of course, keeping the nozzle I actually have a duct that I can put on there too. But yeah, overall, I'd say at this point this is probably the best Tweety we've had so far, and I'm very proud of this piece. The one thing I'm not proud of is that it's kind of cliche. It's got the hinge with the things. I could see ways of making it maybe a little more compact in the way that a lot of extruders are, that they mount to the motor, and that's kind of their key to their strength. And I'm thinking about that. So maybe I'll make something more like a block style extruder. But the cat needs me now, so let's take care of him.